The sound of piano music drifted in from the ballroom. Grace, a quiet young waitress, was rinsing glasses in the back kitchen. She didn't expect anyone else to be there. But then he walked in. Liam Whitmore. Cool. Composed. A man who never entered a room without purpose. He looked at her, calm as ever, and said, "I have a proposal for you." Grace was startled. What kind of proposal? He placed an envelope on the counter. "Marry me," he said. 3 months. $500,000. Grace froze. She looked at him. "Are you serious?" He didn't flinch. "I never joke about what money can buy." And in that moment, neither of them knew. This wasn't just a deal. It was the beginning of something neither of them could control. She had no idea what lay behind that offer. And he had no idea that, for the first time, he was gambling with his heart. The rooftop was quiet, high above the noise of Manhattan. Glass walls reflected the city lights, and a soft breeze made the linen curtains dance behind the bar. Liam Whitmore stepped onto the terrace with the unhurried confidence of a man who never asked for permission. His tuxedo was tailored to perfection. Not a wrinkle. Not a strand of hair out of place. He found Derek already there, leaning against the railing with a drink in hand, staring out at the skyline like it owed him something. They hadn't seen each other in almost 6 years. Not since Derek walked out of Whitmore plus Hale Capital, the investment empire they built together from nothing. But tonight, the annual Blackstone Gala had brought them under the same roof again. Liam approached without hesitation. "Whiskey or guilt?" he asked, nodding at Derek's glass. Derek smirked. "Still got that sharp tongue, huh? Still running from the truth?" Liam countered. They stood in silence for a beat. The weight of shared history lingered in the air. Derek swirled the amber liquid in his glass. "Funny seeing you here. I thought you hated charity events." "I don't hate them," Liam said. "I just understand them." "Meaning?" "They're transactions. People buy redemption. Some just pay more elegantly than others." Derek laughed under his breath. "Always the cynic. Always the idealist," Liam shot back. He stepped closer to the railing, shoulder to shoulder with his former best friend. For a long time neither spoke. Finally, Derek broke the silence. "Remember that night in college? When we pitched our first angel investor at 3 a.m. in a coffee shop?" Liam nodded. "He told us we were too young, too broke, and too ambitious. And we told him he was too old, too blind, and too late," Derek chuckled. They both smiled. For a moment, something human flickered between them. Then it was gone. "That was before you started believing people were assets," Derek said. "Before you saw emotion as a liability." Liam's smile faded. "You say that like it's a weakness." "It is, when you forget you have it." There was a long pause. Liam looked out at the glittering skyline. "The firm grew because I made hard calls. We didn't get where we are by hugging interns and funding sob stories." Derek turned toward him. "We didn't get here by gambling with people's lives either." Liam didn't flinch. "You walked away." "Because I had to," Derek said. "Because I still believe in something." "Then you're exactly where you should be," Liam said coldly. "On the outside watching." That one stung, but Derek held his ground. "I've watched you build an empire, Liam. Brilliant. Ruthless. Efficient. But hollow," he added. "You've turned the world into a spreadsheet." Liam didn't respond. Derek stepped closer. "So let's test your theory." Liam raised an eyebrow. "What theory?" "That money controls everything. That people are just lines on a ledger." Liam's expression didn't change, but his eyes narrowed slightly. Derek took another sip. "There's a girl here tonight. You probably didn't even notice her. She's been clearing tables, avoiding eye contact, trying to survive." Liam followed Derek's gaze through the glass doors, where Grace, unnoticed and small in her black and white uniform, carried a tray across the ballroom floor. "She doesn't belong here," Derek said. "She knows it. Everyone knows it." "So?" Liam asked. "So prove it," Derek said, stepping back. "Take someone like her, someone who lives in the margins, and pull her into your world. See if money can really turn a life into something else." Liam scoffed. "You want me to what? Sponsor her?" Give her a check. No, Derek said, eyes locked. Marry her. Liam laughed, short and sharp. You've lost your mind. 3 months, Derek said, ignoring him. Make the world believe it's real. Make her believe it's real. And if I do? I'll transfer 5 million into a foundation of your choosing. No strings. No press. Liam stared at him, the air suddenly colder. And if I fail? You walk away from the firm. For good. It was silent. Only the faint music from inside drifted up from below. Liam considered it. Not for long. He looked at Derek, a ghost of a grin forming. You really think you can make me care about a waitress? No, Derek said calmly. I think she might make you remember you still can. Liam didn't say anything else. He just turned toward the ballroom, already calculating. The rooftop buzzed with soft conversations and the gentle clinking of glasses. Waiters moved silently, balancing trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres as the city shimmered behind the glass. Liam stood near the edge, staring into the skyline but not really looking at it. Derek was beside him, his eyes scanning the room through the transparent wall separating them from the ballroom below. You always act like you're bored, Derek said, lifting his drink. I usually am, Liam replied. But not tonight? Liam's gaze didn't waver. Tonight feels useful. Derek chuckled. Ah, there it is. The scent of opportunity. Liam gave a faint smirk. Or leverage. A moment passed. Then Derek asked, So? Are you going to take the bet? Liam didn't answer immediately. The music inside shifted to something soft and string-heavy. Through the glass, the glow of the ballroom cast a golden tint across the polished floor. Inside, Grace appeared. She walked carefully through the crowd, tray in hand, moving like someone trying to disappear. She didn't smile. Didn't engage. She simply did her job, table to table, glass to glass, invisible until someone needed something. Derek's eyes followed her. That one. Liam glanced, then looked again. Grace was young, but her shoulders were tired. Her uniform was perfectly neat, yet something about her looked undone. She's been walking the room for 2 hours straight, Derek said. No breaks. No mistakes. No complaints. Liam watched her set down a tray, adjust a stack of dishes, and disappear into the back hall again. She looks like she's held together by thread, Derek added. Perfect. Liam's eyes narrowed. You're serious. As serious as you've ever been about power. Liam leaned on the glass railing. You think I can convince the world I've fallen in love with a waitress? No, Derek said plainly. I think you'll convince the world you've changed. Falling in love would be extra credit. Liam snorted. He turned back toward the skyline, thoughtful now. This isn't just image management, Derek. This is personal PR on steroids. Which is exactly why it's the perfect test. If money can buy anything, it can buy chemistry. Connection. Believability. Liam stayed silent. Inside, Grace emerged again with a new tray, this time wine glasses, fresh-cut fruit. She moved like muscle memory, quiet, unobtrusive, almost ghost-like. There are people in that ballroom, Derek said, who spend $1 million just to be seen. And she's right there, completely invisible. That's your real challenge. Liam's jaw shifted slightly. She doesn't know who I am, he muttered. Derek smiled. Even better. Another moment passed. 3 months, Liam said at last. And if I do this, if I make it real, if no one suspects, you wire the money? 5 million. No conditions. You choose the foundation. And if I walk away? You lose nothing, except the game. Liam turned to face him. No press. No leaks. None from me. Liam studied Derek's face, searching for an angle. A trap. But there wasn't one. This wasn't about business. This was personal. Derek wanted to see him bend. Grace re-entered the ballroom one more time, now carrying a tray of champagne flutes. She passed 2 older men. One tried to speak to her, but she kept her head down, nodded politely, moved on. No one looked back at her. No one saw her. Except Liam. Something in his eyes changed, not softness but interest. Fine, he said. You have yourself a deal. Derek raised his glass. To manipulation masked as morality, he said dryly. Liam didn't clink. He walked inside. The hospital smelled like bleach and lemon-scented air freshener. It tried to feel clean but never warm. Grace sat in the waiting room, shoulders curled inward, her coat too thin for November. The clock on the wall ticked past midnight, but she didn't move. In her lap was an envelope, the latest hospital bill. She didn't need to open it. She already knew what it said. $532,860. The amount was printed in red. Ben's bone marrow transplant had to happen within the next few weeks. That's what the doctors told her 2 days ago. And since then she hadn't slept. She shifted in her seat when the door creaked open. A nurse stepped out, her voice gentle. "He's asking for you." Grace stood, nodded with a small, polite smile and walked down the corridor. Room 203. She knocked softly before pushing the door open. Ben lay in bed, a beanie pulled over his shaved head, hooked up to 3 IVs and a monitor that beeped every few seconds. His face lit up the second he saw her. "Took you long enough," he said, grinning weakly. Grace forced a smile. "I was giving the nurses a break from your endless questions." Ben rolled his eyes. "I only asked one." She sat beside him, brushing a plastic dinosaur aside to make room. "You hungry?" Ben shrugged. "Hospital food tastes like wet cardboard." Grace reached into her tote bag and pulled out a sandwich wrapped in foil. "Turkey and cheese," she said. "Stolen from the cafe fridge." Ben took it with a small laugh. "Thanks, criminal." She watched him eat, slow but steady. He was 13, but tonight he looked 8. After a few minutes, he looked up at her. "Are we still doing the transplant?" Grace hesitated. Her throat closed. She nodded. "Yeah," she said. "We're just working out logistics." "Logistics," he repeated. "That's your word for we can't afford it, right?" She flinched. Ben didn't say it to hurt her. He just understood too much for his age. Grace leaned back in the chair. She stared at the wall, at the ugly green paint and the crack near the ceiling. How did we get here? When their parents died in a car accident 4 years ago, she'd been 21. Ben was 9. There were no aunts, no uncles, no savings account. Just Grace, juggling school and 3 part-time jobs, trying to keep them both afloat. She dropped out of college after the second ER visit. Since then, it had been rent payments, overdue notices, and a constant anxiety that sat on her chest like a weight. Now leukemia. Now $500,000 she didn't have. She blinked. Ben was still watching her. His voice was small. "You won't leave me, right?" Grace looked at him, eyes glassy. "Never." He reached for her hand. "Then we'll figure it out." She smiled through it. Later that night, after Ben had fallen asleep, Grace stood outside the hospital entrance, her coat zipped up to her chin. The cold bit at her fingers. She checked her phone. One unread message. "Unknown number, meet me. 9:30 a.m. tomorrow. Whitmore Building. Floor 57. She stared at the name, Liam Whitmore. She hadn't told him yes. She hadn't told him no. She hadn't told anyone anything. But somehow he knew she would come. The next morning, floor 57, Whitmore Tower. The office was too quiet. Marble floors. Steel accents. No warmth. Grace sat across from Liam in a room that overlooked half of Manhattan. He poured tea for her as if it were routine. She didn't touch it. "I assume you've considered the offer," he said. Grace clasped her hands in her lap. "I don't understand why me." Liam didn't blink. "Because you don't belong in my world." "That's supposed to be flattering?" "No," he said plainly. "It's supposed to be believable." She held his gaze. He continued. 3 months. A legal marriage. Appearances at key events. In return, $500,000 wired to your account. No questions, no strings. She swallowed. "What if I back out?" "You keep the first deposit," he said. "But you won't." Grace didn't answer. She thought of Ben. Of the last ER visit. Of the pale blue curtain they pulled when he threw up blood. Of the doctor who gently said, "Without the transplant he won't see next summer." She thought of the envelope in her bag. Red numbers. Deadlines. She looked at Liam. His face was unreadable. But his money was very, very real. She nodded. Just once. Not for herself. Not for dignity or pride. She was selling all of that today. She did it for her brother. Because in this world, that was the only thing she had left to protect. Grace arrived at Liam's estate on a Tuesday morning. The town car stopped at the gates and the driver didn't speak. He didn't need to. The house spoke for itself. White stone. Iron fences. Rows of glass windows that stretched toward the sky like a challenge. It wasn't a home. It was a fortress. She stepped out in sneakers and a wrinkled coat. Two assistants greeted her on the steps with clipboards and neutral smiles. "This way, Miss Rivera," one said. "We'll begin orientation now." No one asked if she needed water. No one asked how she was feeling. They just took her suitcase and walked. Inside, the air smelled like cedar and polished marble. Every surface gleamed. A maid waited near the main staircase. "This is Clara," the assistant said. "She'll be your personal contact for daily schedules, wardrobe fittings, and PR coaching." Clara smiled kindly but professionally. "I'll walk you through the routine. Breakfast is served at 7. Your first etiquette session begins at 9. Grace nodded. She hadn't expected kindness. She hadn't expected cruelty either. What she found was precision. By day 2 her feet hurt. She'd spent the morning balancing a champagne flute on 3 fingers while walking in stilettos. After lunch, a speech coach worked with her on vowel shaping. At dinner, she was taught how to laugh softly, politely, at jokes she didn't find funny. She didn't complain. She just asked if she could practice alone in the evenings. Clara approved the request. By day 4 the transformation began. New clothes. Tailored dresses. Understated jewelry. Grace stared at herself in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman looking back. She looked elegant. And exhausted. On the 7th day, Liam returned from a trip to Zurich. He entered the living room to find Grace reading on the couch, barefoot, a wool sweater pulled over her knees. She looked up when he walked in, then down again without a word. It was the first time they'd been in the same room since she signed the contract. He poured himself a drink. "You've adapted quickly." "I learned fast," she said, not looking up. He studied her. "You don't ask for much." Grace turned the page. "I didn't come here to be spoiled." "You could have," he said. "There's a budget for wardrobe upgrades, beauty teams, perks." "I only want enough for my brother's treatment," she said. "Nothing more." Liam didn't reply. He took a sip and walked out. The next morning, Clara pulled him aside. She requested to learn how to tie her own evening gown loops, she said. She said she doesn't want the staff fussing over her. Liam frowned. Most people clung to the performance. Grace was trying to disappear into it. A week later, Liam watched her at a charity event. She stood near the back of the crowd in a floor-length navy gown. Hair pinned, posture perfect, but her eyes still looked for an exit. He noticed that she never interrupted, never dominated conversation. But when she did speak, people leaned in. She said little, but it meant something. He couldn't explain why, but he noticed, more than he should have. One evening, he found her in the garden, kneeling by the roses, hands in the dirt. She wore jeans and a borrowed flannel shirt. She wiped sweat from her forehead and didn't look up. "You know we have gardeners," he said. "I know," she replied. "But I needed something real to touch today." He didn't move. She kept pulling weeds. "I used to help my mom in our tiny yard," she said quietly. "It reminded me I wasn't stuck." Liam watched her fingers, rougher now. There was no performance in that moment. Just grace. Later that night he looked through her file. It was thinner than most. Basic info. No scandal. No debts she hadn't already listed. Just one note from the legal team. Declined bonus deposit. Requested medical wire only. That was it. She really meant it. She didn't want more. She wanted out. And yet, she stayed. Day after day in a world that wasn't hers, playing a role she hadn't asked for. Not flawlessly, but fully. Not with ambition, but with purpose. That night, Liam walked past the guest wing and paused outside her door. He didn't knock. He didn't speak. He just stood there for a while, wondering, why did it matter that she was different? Why did it feel like her silence said more than any performance? Why did he start to feel like she wasn't the one pretending? He turned and walked away before he could answer. The dining room gleamed under crystal chandeliers. 12 guests sat around a long marble table, all dressed in designer suits and elegant gowns. Wine flowed freely. Forks clinked gently against porcelain. Conversation buzzed with market trends, global mergers, and offhand jokes only billionaires found funny. Grace sat at Liam's left, her navy gown draped perfectly, her posture exact. But her eyes stayed down. Calm. Focused. This wasn't her world and she knew it. Still she listened. Every word. Every tone. Across the table, a silver-haired investor swirled his wine and leaned forward. He was half drunk. Maybe more. "Tell me, Mrs. Whitmore," he said, lips curling, "what's your opinion on hostile takeovers? Or do you just pick the linens?" A ripple of polite laughter followed. Subtle. Controlled. But real. Liam's jaw tightened. Grace didn't flinch. She looked up slowly, her eyes meeting the man's. "I find hostile takeovers fascinating," she said evenly. "Particularly how much they resemble this table. Everyone dressed for power, pretending not to be circling." The room went quiet. A beat. Then someone laughed, genuinely this time. Another guest raised a glass. "Touché." The investor leaned back, eyes narrowed, but he didn't speak again. Liam turned to Grace, his expression unreadable. But something in his eyes had shifted. Respect? Or curiosity? Maybe both. Later that night, the mansion was silent. Liam stood alone in his study, jacket off, sleeves rolled. The fire crackled in the marble hearth. He stared at the screen in front of him but hadn't typed a word in 20 minutes. A soft knock broke the silence. Then the door creaked open. Grace entered slowly, holding a small tray. "Couldn't sleep," she said. He looked up, surprised. "Tea," she added. "Figured you might need some too." She placed the tray on his desk and sat across from him. No makeup. No pretense. Just grace. He picked up the cup, inhaled the steam. "Chamomile," he said. She nodded. Safe bet for someone who doesn't sleep. They sat in silence for a moment. Then he asked, "Why didn't you snap back tonight?" "I did," she said. "I mean really snap back." Grace looked at the fire. "I've worked service jobs since I was 16, she said quietly. "You learn to pick your battles. And tonight was a chess game, not a fight." He nodded slowly. "You handled it well." She smiled faintly. "Better than linen jokes." He actually chuckled. It was short, but real. She looked around the study. Bookshelves lined the walls. No family photos. No personal clutter. Just control. "Do you always work this late?" she asked. "I don't sleep much." Afraid to dream? That caught him off guard. He studied her face. "No one's ever asked me that." Maybe no one cared enough to. He didn't respond. Grace sipped her tea. Then quietly, "I didn't expect this place to feel so quiet." Liam glanced around. It wasn't always. What changed? He didn't answer. But something in his face said, everything. They talked for nearly an hour. Not about business. Not about strategy. About small things. How she liked rainy days. How he hated jazz but kept playing it at events because people expected it. They disagreed about food, about books, about the best time to take a walk. She made him laugh again, this time louder. He caught himself smiling. She saw it but didn't say anything. Didn't need to. When she stood to leave, he didn't stop her. But he looked up and said, "Thanks. For the tea." She nodded. "For once," she said, "you're welcome." Then she left the room. The fire crackled softly behind her. And for the first time in weeks, Liam didn't feel alone. Grace hadn't planned to care. That wasn't part of the deal. This was supposed to be a transaction. Clean. Contained. Measured. But real life has a way of breaking through contracts. And affection, true unexpected affection, doesn't ask permission. The first moment was almost invisible. Liam came home past midnight. Drunk. Again. The driver walked him in. His tie was undone, his shirt rumpled. His eyes clouded with exhaustion, or maybe indifference. Grace didn't say anything. She didn't scold or question. She simply stood, quietly made a cup of warm tea, and left it on the side table near the couch. No words. Just the soft clink of ceramic on wood. Liam sat down heavily. He looked at the cup. Then at her. But she was already walking away. That night he drank it. All of it. The second time he was sick. Not dramatically so. Just a seasonal cold. A rough cough. Slight fever. He'd canceled his meetings, stayed in bed, and told the staff not to bother him. But around 10 p.m., when he turned on the lamp beside his bed, he saw a small tray. A bowl of porridge. Steam still rising. A glass of water. And a pill packet beside a folded napkin. No note. No message. But he knew. He ate the porridge slowly. It wasn't gourmet. But it felt like something he hadn't had in a long time. Comfort. Another night he walked past the kitchen. Late. He was on the phone, half listening to a London investor complain about currency shifts. Then he smelled it. Garlic. Rice. A soft, familiar scent he hadn't expected. He followed it. Grace was at the stove, barefoot, wearing an oversized sweater, stirring something in a small pot. "Did we hire new staff?" he asked dryly. She jumped a little, then smirked. "Nope. Just feeding myself." "Why?" She shrugged. "Keeps me sane." He stepped closer. "What is it?" "Fried rice." "Kind of." He paused. Then, without asking, pulled out a stool and sat down. She raised an eyebrow. "I didn't make enough for two. I'll eat less." She handed him a bowl anyway. They ate in silence. But it wasn't awkward. It was warm. Like something old being remembered. After that, he started staying in more. Not every night. But enough for the staff to notice. Enough for Clara to raise an eyebrow when Liam canceled a dinner at the Wellesley and instead requested home service. Enough that one Friday evening he walked into the kitchen, loosened his tie, and asked, "What's for dinner?" Grace looked up from her pan, startled. "Nothing fancy." He nodded. "Good." That night they ate on the balcony. Just the two of them. No staff. No cameras. Just bowls, chopsticks, and the low hum of city lights. Then came the rain. A late spring storm rolled in. The garden turned dark and wet. Thunder rolled like distant memory. Grace made soup. Hot, spicy, full of ginger. She brought a bowl to the library where Liam sat working. He didn't look up immediately. But when he did, she was already setting it down. He stared at the bowl. Then at her. He didn't ask why. She didn't explain. And yet, he understood. He put the pen down. Took the spoon. And ate. That night, neither of them spoke about what was happening. But something was happening. Not loud. Not grand. Just real. Small, consistent acts that soften the edges between them. Not every love begins with a smile. Sometimes it begins with a quiet bowl of soup. Or a meal shared in silence. It started like any other afternoon. The estate was quiet. Grace was in the garden, trimming a few dead leaves from the roses. The sun filtered softly through the trees, casting warm light across the gravel path. She didn't hear the car. Didn't see the visitor. Until Clara approached. "There's someone here to see Mr. Whitmore," she said. He didn't call ahead. Grace nodded, wiping her hands. "I'll let him know." But when she turned the corner, she stopped. Derek Hale was standing in the foyer, hands in his pockets, wearing a tailored gray coat and a look that didn't match the sunlight. Liam was already walking down the stairs. Their eyes met. Tension snapped into the air like static. "Didn't expect to see you here," Liam said, voice tight. "I'm not here for you," Derek replied. His eyes shifted, landed on Grace. She paused halfway down the hallway. He turned fully toward her. "You don't know, do you?" he said. Grace frowned. "Know what?" Liam's voice cut in. "Derek, stop." But Derek didn't stop. He stepped forward. 3 months ago this man made a bet. $5 million. To marry someone like you. Convince the world it's real. Grace didn't move. Didn't speak. Her breath caught, but no sound came out. Derek didn't blink. "You were the game, Grace. The test. Nothing more. Liam stepped between them. That's enough. Is it? Derek asked. Because I think she deserves to know that her silence, her kindness, her dignity, were all just part of your experiment. Grace's hands trembled. She looked at Liam. Tell me he's lying, she whispered. Liam opened his mouth, closed it. Then, it started that way, he said. But it's not what it is now. She stepped back. That's not an answer. Grace. Her voice shook. So it was true? He tried to reach for her arm. She pulled away. How much? She asked. How much was I worth to you? 5 million. The number dropped like a stone. She stared at him. All the nights. The soup. The silence that felt like safety. All of it ripped clean. I thought, she whispered. I thought maybe I wasn't pretending anymore. Liam looked broken. Neither was I. But she was already walking. Through the hallway. Past the roses. Out the door. That night the house felt like glass. Liam sat alone in the living room, the fire out, the lights dim. Clara entered quietly. She packed light, she said. Didn't take the car. He didn't respond. She left a note, Clara added. He looked up. But Clara shook her head. It's not for you. She placed a sealed envelope on the table. White. Blank. Ben's name was on it. Then she left. Outside the rain had started. Liam stood by the window and watched it blur the city lights. He didn't say anything. Didn't move. But inside, something had cracked wide open. Not because she left. But because this time, he wanted her to stay. Brooklyn smelled like rain and fresh pavement. Grace stepped off the bus with one suitcase and a bag of groceries, her fingers sore from gripping both too tightly. The building was old but clean. 3rd floor. No elevator. She didn't complain. The apartment had peeling paint and a creaky heater, but the windows let in morning light and it was hers. Just enough space for a bed, a foldable table and Ben's sketches pinned on the wall. She started working at a small cafe 2 blocks away. The hours were long. Tips weren't great. But it was honest. Every night after closing, she visited Ben at the hospital. He was responding to treatment. Slowly. Grace never told him why she left Liam's house. She just said, things change. Ben didn't press. He just held her hand and said, I'm glad you're still here. That was enough. Meanwhile, uptown, Liam's world had gone quiet. The mansion echoed in ways it hadn't before. He noticed the sound of footsteps that weren't there. The tea tray that no longer appeared at midnight. The kitchen untouched. The library colder. He missed her voice, especially the silence between words. He missed the smell of her food wafting down the hallway. But more than anything he missed how she made space feel human. One morning he looked at himself in the mirror. Not the suit. Not the brand. Just the man. And he didn't like who he saw. That week Liam made a decision. He sold his controlling shares in the firm. No press release. No speech. He just walked into the boardroom and handed over power. Derek was there. He didn't gloat. He just nodded. And quietly said, finally. Liam took the 5 million he won from the bet, and doubled it. He started a foundation in Ben's name. Donated anonymously to pediatric hospitals. Started funding bone marrow registries and transplant programs in underfunded communities. He did it without press. Without glory. He did it because, for the first time, he wasn't trying to prove anything. He was trying to become someone he could face in the mirror. Every night he came home to a house that felt less like his. He passed by the guest wing, still exactly as she left it. One morning he found her teacup, the chipped one she always used, still sitting in the dishwasher. He didn't move it. Couldn't. Because for all the money in his world, he couldn't buy back presents. Couldn't buy back the sound of someone humming softly while cooking. Couldn't buy trust. The one thing I never tried to buy was trust. And it was the only thing that mattered. The cafe was quiet that morning. Light rain tapped against the window, soft and steady. Grace stood behind the counter, sleeves rolled up, wiping down trays and watching the steam rise from the coffee machines. She liked mornings like this, slow, gentle, simple. No noise. No eyes watching. Just enough time to breathe. The bell above the door chimed. She didn't look up at first. Just another customer. Then, a pause in the air. Like the room shifted a little. She glanced up. Liam stood in the doorway. No suit. No driver. Just a navy jacket soaked slightly at the shoulders, and a look she hadn't seen before. Not pride. Not regret. Just honesty. He stepped inside. Didn't speak right away. She didn't either. Grace finished wiping the tray, set it aside, and folded her hands. Liam stood in front of the counter. Rain dripped from his coat. "I'm not here to fix what's broken," he said. No greeting. No apology. Just the truth. "I'm not here to undo the bet. Or the hurt." He met her eyes. "I'm here to become someone better. Because of you. And because of Ben." Silence stretched between them. She didn't move. Didn't flinch. But she didn't walk away either. Behind them, someone cleared their throat. Grace blinked, glanced at the register. She started. But Liam held up a hand. "Don't say anything now. I'm not asking for anything." He placed a small envelope on the counter. "Just something for Ben's next round of treatment. No strings. I swear." Grace looked down. No label. No signature. Just the kind of envelope that meant quiet help. She didn't pick it up. Not yet. The rain continued outside. Liam turned to leave. Paused at the door. Then looked back once. "Even if I never see you again," he said softly, "you changed me." And then he was gone. Grace stood behind the counter a long time. The envelope still resting between her hands. She didn't cry. She didn't smile. She just stood still. And for the first time in weeks, she didn't feel like she was carrying everything alone. It was a Saturday morning when Liam called. No pressure. Just a question, "Would you come see something with me?" Grace almost said no. But something in his voice, low, steady, not urgent, made her pause. She agreed. They drove in silence for most of the way. No private car. No suit. Just Liam behind the wheel of an old Jeep, one hand resting loosely on the wheel, the other occasionally adjusting the radio. He didn't speak unless spoken to. He didn't fill the air with apologies. And that, strangely, made her feel safer. Their first stop was a pediatric wing at a public hospital in Queens. No press. No cameras. Just nurses in scrubs, parents with tired eyes, and children in colorful gowns. He didn't announce himself. Didn't expect recognition. He simply walked the hallways, offering a quiet smile, nodding to doctors, listening when people spoke. Grace noticed how the staff relaxed around him, not because he had power but because he respected theirs. One nurse touched his sleeve and said softly, "That equipment we ordered came in yesterday." "Thank you." Liam just nodded. Happy it arrived. No speech. No plaque. No mention of cost. Only presence. The second stop was a small community center in the Bronx. An after-school program for kids with nowhere else to go. Basketball. Homework tables. Sandwiches wrapped in foil. Liam had funded the roof repairs. Grace only found out because a teenage girl tugged at his coat and said, "Hey, my little brother says the gym doesn't leak anymore. You fixed that." He smiled. Sort of. They stayed for an hour. No agenda. Just stayed. On the way back, they stopped by a park bench overlooking the Hudson. Liam brought coffee. She didn't ask how he knew her order. They sat in silence for a while. Finally she spoke. "You're not the man I thought you were." He didn't look smug. Just still. "I'm not trying to change your mind," he said. "I'm trying to change me." She nodded slowly. "And that's not for me to validate." He turned to her. "No. It's for me to prove. Consistently. Even if you never look again." Grace watched a boat cut across the water. "Why show me all this?" she asked. He paused. "Because I used to think trust was something I could earn with words. Or with money. And now." He looked down. "Now I know. It's what you build when no one's looking." They didn't kiss. They didn't hold hands. But when they stood to leave, she walked beside him. Not behind. And she didn't let go when his arm brushed hers. The sun was setting when Grace arrived. The garden behind Liam's estate hadn't changed much. Still quiet. Still green. But somehow, it felt different. Warmer. More alive. The pathway was lit with soft lanterns. Flickering candles floated in small bowls on the pond. At the far end, under the arbor of vines where they once ate in silence, a table had been set. Simple. No silver trays. No servers. Just 2 bowls. 2 sets of chopsticks. And a pot of Grace's favorite soup. Liam stood nearby, hands tucked into his coat pockets. He didn't step forward right away. He waited. Let her look around. Let her remember. When she finally turned to him, her eyes were already glassy. "You remembered everything," she whispered. He nodded. "I didn't want to start over," he said. "I wanted to continue, from where it became real." He pulled something from his coat. A small velvet box. He didn't open it yet. Not until he stepped forward, slowly, then dropped to one knee. "I gave you a contract once," Liam said softly. "With terms? With timelines? With power I didn't deserve." He looked up. But this time, no contracts. No conditions. He opened the box. Inside, a ring, simple, elegant. "Real. I'm not asking to erase the past. I'm asking to move forward, with it. With you." He paused. "I love you, Grace. Not for what you did for me. But for who you are, even when I didn't deserve it." Grace's breath caught. Tears spilled before she could answer. But she didn't hesitate. She stepped forward. Lifted his hand in both of hers. And knelt too. "Yes," she whispered, smiling through tears. "But this time, we walked together." She looked into his eyes. Side by side. He slipped the ring on her finger. Then pulled her gently into a hug. No crowd. No applause. Just 2 people beneath old vines choosing each other without pretense. Behind them, the candles flickered in rhythm with the wind. And somewhere, deep within the walls that once held secrets and silence, a new chapter had begun. A small garden wedding. No press. No guests from high society, just people they've helped. Ben, now healthy, walks his sister down the aisle. No champagne towers. No fireworks. Just warmth, truth, and peace. They exchange vows under the vines where it all began. No performance, no promises to impress. Just a quiet, "I choose you." And in that stillness, 2 lives, once broken by pride and circumstance, begin again. Not every love starts with perfection. Some love stories are born from failure, silence, and second chances. This story touched you. Tell us in the comments. If you believe love is something you build, not something you find. Leave a like, share this with someone you care about, and subscribe to SoulTales, where stories aren't just told, they're felt.